Hi, everyone. Aidan Michaels here, and today I am very pleased to be joined by the longtime voice of the Nashville Predators, Hall of Fame broadcaster, Pete Weber. Pete, how was the Olympic break for you?
It was good because I was able to get in pitchers and catchers down in the West Palm Beach area for 4 days and got to see some old baseball buddies.
Love it. I love to hear that. So I want to start from the beginning here. What got you into broadcasting, and was there a certain broadcaster or a couple of broadcasters that inspired you the most in the very beginning?
I got into it because I didn't want to work for a living. I didn't want to follow my father into architecture and engineering. And I had, yes, going across the dial at night, I had this big tabletop Zenith radio next to my nightstand. And on it, I was going across all those 50,000 watt stations back in the day that carried sports play by play. And the guy who captivated me first was a guy named Harry Carey, doing the Cardinals games with Jack Buck and Joe Garagiola. And I had no idea that later on I'd go to college and that Joe Garagiola Jr. would be my campus radio station sports director. So things all seemed to tie together very quickly.
That's amazing. What drew you to Notre Dame, and how did you find your way into the radio station there?
My father went there and graduated in 39. And then my brother was there in grad school and graduated, and he's 10 years older than I and graduated in 63. So I don't know that I had a choice. I was sort of predestined to be going there. And the campus radio station, we had to make a deal when I came in. They accepted me to the school only provisionally. I
Hmm.
had to be on my guard throughout my freshman year. And then I spent my sophomore year overseas at Innsbruck, Austria. When I came back as a junior, that's when I joined the campus station.
What was the first game that you did there? Do you remember?
First game would have been Notre Dame and Texas Christian football Saturday, when I was finally a senior, getting the chance to do that. And got to call the only touchdown pass of one of my caught by one of my classmates, which was nice. But Billy Tohill was the coach of Texas Christian back in those days in 1972.
Wow. And right off the bat, obviously you said calling a football game your senior year. Was there a sport that was particularly harder than the rest? At what point also did hockey become perhaps a favorite for you?
Hockey was always a favorite as a sport to enjoy, but and I'd have to say that when you get right down to it, it probably was the most difficult, and if I can be obtuse enough here to say to conquer, and I don't know that I've conquered it yet, even after 50 plus years in the game. But hockey was all, I mean, I grew up a huge fan of the Chicago Blackhawks, Bobby Hull, Stan Mikita, Glenn Hall in goal, and those guys. And then later on, Tony Esposito. And fortunately enough for me, the Hawks annually played an exhibition game at Notre Dame.
Hmm.
And I'll never forget the night that Bobby Hull hit the goalpost right in front of me. And I think that post might still be vibrating.
Yeah, see, I'm too young to remember. I never saw him play, but I've heard a
Yeah.
lot of stories. He's quite the player, that is for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So
610 goals. He made a mark.
no kidding, right? So moving to your stint in Buffalo in the late
Yep.
70s, working with the Bills, Braves, Sabres, did you ever get that feeling, whether it was there or somewhere else, that you had made it in the broadcasting world?
I didn't think that I had made it, but I thought I had, in one sense, made it to a place from which I could leap off
Hmm.
into the still unexpected, unknown future. And because the training that I got there, and it's more like self training, it's more like setting up your own graduate school of how to handle the various sports.
Hmm.
So I was covering O.J. Simpson on the Bills. I was covering Randy Smith and Bob McAdoo, Adrian Dantley on the Buffalo Braves. And by the way, I just went to the IMAX theater to see the Elvis Presley
Hmm.
epic that was put out, Elvis Presley in concert. And what did I see there? But as they were leaving the old Aud in Buffalo, where I met my wife, by the way, there was a Buffalo Brave sign on the wall as they were careening on down the hallway. And then with the Buffalo Sabres, Marcel Pronovost was the head coach back at that point in time. And he was a great mentor for me as well.
And as you know, prepping for games takes a lot of time. So I'm curious, just as a younger broadcaster in
Hmm.
Buffalo, when you're covering NFL, NHL, NBA teams, how difficult was that to prep for all those different sports going back and forth?
I think that it was not as easy as it is today because of the internet. The
Right.
internet really opens a lot of doors for prep, things that we never would have anticipated. And that is one thing that I think that has been a major forward step for all broadcasters, whether they're my elderly situation or just getting started. I mean, and I'm thinking about what it was like. You did your research, you went to the Blue Line luncheons, and Notre Dame and Wisconsin were in the very same league, the WCHA, and that's where I really got to meet Badger Bob at those Friday luncheons before the opening of a Saturday series. And now you have on campus running the women's program his son Mark,
Of course.
or the first Magic Johnson
Yep.
that we knew.
Yeah. It's funny. I just had that conversation with somebody after hearing, that Mark was nicknamed Magic. And I'm like, I'm wondering, yeah, who was first? Was it Magic Johnson of the Lakers or was it Magic Mark Johnson? And guess it was Mark Johnson.
It was Mark, and I'll tell you, it happened one weekend in a Notre Dame Wisconsin series where Mark had, I believe it was two injured groin muscles.
Wow.
So he was taped from ankle to midsection and went out on the ice only for power plays and scored 3 goals that weekend.
It's amazing. That is amazing. They're going to build him a statue here at Wisconsin for what he's obviously
I
did with the
hope
men's
so.
program and for what he's been doing with the women's program, looking great this year as well.
I'm so sorry I missed having the chance to get back together with him
Yeah.
when the Wisconsin women were in town here earlier in our hockey season
Yep.
because I was so tied up with our schedule.
Yeah. I was there for that. I was calling the games that weekend at the Ford Ice Center. I mean, I
Yeah.
love Nashville. What a great city. What a great city.
So you were the Terry Chris break, I'm trusting.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Pretty cool stuff, I will say. I
Let me
believe
tell
it.
you a story about that.
Please tell me.
So Terry played for Scotty Bowman with the St. Louis Blues, the
Yeah.
first 5 years of that franchise. So Scotty's daughter brings his grandson here for a youth tournament. And he all of a sudden I get this picture from Scotty on my cell phone. And then he calls immediately to make sure I got it. And I said, "So what's that, Scotty?" He goes, "Terry Crisp has his own rink. And if he has his own rink, why isn't he, even though he's now 80 years old, why isn't he in there every day working on his skating?"
That's so
Terry
good.
really enjoyed that story.
I'm sure. I'm sure. So, speaking of the Wisconsin Badgers, another Badger legend, Bob Miller, you had a chance to team up
Oh,
with
I
him when
worked.
coming to Los Angeles.
Yeah,
Obviously, a Hall of Famer as well. As a Wisconsin Badger and a Kings fan myself, I love Bob, one of my broadcasting idols. How was it to work alongside him for the Kings?
absolutely great. I hope you saw what he put on Threads, I think it was a couple of weeks ago,
Mm.
where he put on where he had misspoken one night. Mario Lessard was the Kings goaltender, and he got checked into his net by Rick Hampton on one of our defensemen and broke his stick. And the next thing out of Bob's mouth that night at Edmonton was, and now Mario Lessard is standing in front of the King's net with 8 inches of shaft in his hand. And I lost it. I just played. You want to talk about mirthful moments in broadcast? That was probably one of the first that I ever had.
That is so great. Yeah, I've seen a clip of him explaining it years later, and my dad and I have seen that and have just cracked up over it. What a great line. And the fact that he realized right when he said it, like, oh, and you
Yeah,
can't really address it like that on the air, but
I could
uh,
see his eyes.
I'm
I could see
sure.
his eyes. The arched eyebrows went up right now.
So good. So funny. So at that time, did you have a preference at all between doing play-by-play or color, or was it at that point just about getting all the reps?
About getting the reps and knowing that I wanted to do play by play rather than the color. But I was lucky that I got that little breakthrough because Jack Kent Cooke, who was the founder and owner of the Lakers and the Kings,
Mhm.
he always wanted to hire professional broadcasters rather than the ex athletes. So that gave me that chance. And I appreciated that greatly. But then one summer, I was able to get a job in Albuquerque doing the Albuquerque Dukes, not the Albuquerque Isotopes, the Dukes doing baseball. And that convinced me that that's what I wanted to do. And then Chick Hearn, who was their director of broadcasting in the Forum, helped me get the job when they started the brand new, late lamented now, Sonic's Super Channel. And I got the play-by-play job there in the summer of '81.
Yeah, so talking before we get to Seattle, I want to talk more a bit about Chick Hearn, obviously another broadcasting legend. I know early in his Laker career, at least, he preferred to call games alone.
Yes.
Did you ever get that impression from Chick that, maybe
It
he,
was later, okay, it was much
uh,
after he had gotten rid of Al Michaels. And I
right,
think Al Michaels lasted maybe a couple of weeks as
that's right,
Chick's partner. And then all of a sudden he needed some help because Pat Riley became an assistant coach after Jack McKinney had the bicycle accident
right.
down in Rancho Palos Verdes and had suffered a concussion and wasn't able to continue that season. So Riles became, and here we're just talking days after his statue was unveiled outside crypto.com.
Yeah.
But Pat needed to be, his void needed to be filled. So Chick would grab me when I was available from the Kings schedule. So one time I did this travel. I did Los Angeles to Montreal for hockey,
Mm.
Montreal to Portland for basketball, Portland back down to Los Angeles for the Kings actually returning home. And they hopscotched the country quite a bit in those days with
Yeah.
only themselves, Vancouver, and the old Colorado Rockies hockey team out west. And then I went back up to Minnesota. So those were very, very strange, enervating times, though.
Yeah.
But Chick welcomed me. I mean, I thought that was great. So I thought that maybe this is something I have on Al Michaels. Not much, but I got that much on him.
It's funny because a story about Al Michaels and that time with the Lakers is I guess he was at the airport ready to go on a trip with the Lakers and was told to
Yes.
turn around and go home and then was fired right
Yeah.
after that. Pretty funny stuff, but
Much to the chagrin of Jack Kent Cook, I got to tell you. He
yeah,
he
no
really
kidding.
wanted him to work with Chick.
Right, right. That is a funny story. Now, one of the biggest things as a younger broadcaster myself when I call games is going back and forth between TV and radio, especially
Hmm.
doing hockey. It's because I'm going back and forth almost every weekend. Did you find it? Do you still find it difficult at all when switching between the two?
Not as much because Bob and I did like 20 to 25 simulcasts a year. So they weren't separate. They didn't separate until after I had left. Nick Dixon had taken my spot. And 10 years thereafter, they split the Kings radio and television.
Hmm.
And when I first came to Nashville, I'd say our first 13, 14 seasons, we did the simulcast as well. The problem then was to make sure you didn't overspeak for television or underspeak for radio and never say, as you can see here. That was what we had to avoid. And that's what I had to teach Terry Crisp as well
Hmm.
back at that point in time. But he picked up on it right away and learned how to do it.
It's funny you said that because I remember this past weekend, just a few days ago, I said something like that, and instantly I was thinking, oh, well, they can't see, can they? I mean, it's something that I definitely struggle with, but
I love to drive in the car and have hear somebody do that while I'm listening in Sirius
uh,
XM. And I'll say, wait a minute, I'm looking on my screen here and I've got a screen in my car, but I don't see anything.
that's that's great. Now I heard I forget which announcer did this, but when doing radio games, obviously you're mentioning the time and score a heck
Yes.
of a lot more. They had like an egg timer next to them, and every time it would
I've
go
used
off.
that Red Barber trick
Oh,
going
okay,
back to
there you
my
go.
college days.
There you go. I need to get something like that because that's another thing. It's saying that the time when the score, realizing, hey, they don't know the time of the score unless you say it.
Correct.
Uh,
The thing now is, though,
mm,
Aiden, if you try to find an egg timer that's not digital, it's going to be
right.
difficult. But and really, in many ways, the key on the digital, what you get it with where you can turn the alarm off. Otherwise, your listeners are going to be going, your audience is going to be going crazy.
Yeah, no kidding. I was looking on Amazon and I was thinking I might just settle with the silent the
Yeah.
hourglass, something like that, and just flip it over every once in a while. But yeah, definitely if getting an egg timer is in the question, turn that volume down. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, without question.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens. You never know. So going back to
Or you
Buffalo,
can use these too.
what do we got here? Oh yeah,
Nice
see,
digital where you can turn off the alarm.
I like it. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna invest in that. I think that's a good idea. Hopefully, I can get it
It's
before
not a huge
vacation.
investment. I think you even on your college
Yeah.
situation, you can afford it.
Okay, I like it. I'll try and I'll Amazon Prime it for the games this weekend, and it'll
Very
work out.
good.
There you
What
go.
who do you have coming in this week? Are
We
you going
have
out?
it's the WCHA playoffs for women's hockey against Bemidji State, the first round.
Okay.
So it'll be
Now,
that, and then
Bemidji, that was the
yeah,
alma mater of a former Kings defenseman, Gary Sargent.
really, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, the Beavers. There you go. Love it. So we'll see what happens there. The Badgers are 4-0 against them this year, so we'll hope to make it 6-0 and head to Minneapolis for the semifinals. But we'll
And
see.
because they're 4-0, they're at home, right?
Yeah. Yep. The number
Yeah.
one seed. So they've clinched it. They've clinched it. So going back to after the 1982 season, going back to
Hmm.
Buffalo, what was it that drew you back to Buffalo?
All the fun and friends that I had there. And the fact I didn't go back to Buffalo until I was able to cover Gaylord Perry's 300th career victory at the Kingdome in Seattle against the Yankees, the night that Doyle Alexander lost his temper and slugged the dugout wall with his right hand and broke a knuckle. So that was a special, special night. But then I was going across to see a Sugar Ray Leonard fight
Hmm.
at the Odd in Buffalo, only to be driving across, I think at that point in time, uh, it was probably Montana, getting the radio update that the fight was going to be put off for several weeks because of Sugar Ray having sustained an injury.
Hmm.
So that was, I mean, I went back for that. And then really, I started my freelance career that fall doing Buffalo Bills football,
Hmm.
doing Sabres cable, and all those other things that went with that. By that time, the Buffalo Braves were gone to San
Hmm.
Diego.
Yeah, I wanted to ask more about you covering the Bills and doing that talk show with Bill Polian, Marv Levy, Jim Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
The situation that you guys were in from 91 to 94, it was insane. Obviously, making it to the four Super Bowls in a row and unfortunately not winning any of them. What was your
Right.
experience like working with the Bills during that stretch and hosting that talk show?
Good to work with. Very good to work with. I'm still here. Okay, Marv just turned 100 this last
Yeah,
summer. So when we go to Chicago, I will call him. That's his hometown. So I'll call him. And now he is an investor in Harry Carey's, ironically enough, restaurant.
right.
And so we'll go there with him and his wife, Fran. Bill Polian, I still will hear from. And Jim Kelly, I've been delighted to see how he's been able to battle his various afflictions that he's had with his health.
Mm,
It looks like he is in the clear right now.
good. That is great to hear. Love to hear that. And staying in Buffalo, obviously, after taking over as the full-time play-by-play guy for the Sabres in '95. What was your favorite memory from those couple of seasons with some of those fun playoff runs?
And the first year, we closed out the odd, and that was a non-playoff season that first year. But the fun was working with guys like Pat LaFontaine
Mm,
and Dominic Hasek.
yeah.
In fact, I just was reading Dominic Hasek talking about the U.S. women's hockey team and praising them for turning down an invitation to the White House.
Yeah.
I think that was interesting to be certain.
Mm,
The men, though, are going,
mhm.
and I think they're going to the State of the Union tonight.
Yep.
This is, but that whole group, and I still have guys that come in as now as scouts. Donald Audette, who had like 13 to 14 goals eliminated from his total because of the toe in the crease rule,
Right.
which was no tolerance, zero tolerance on that. And then Derek Plant, whose sons are NCAA scoring leaders at Minnesota Duluth. One of them was number one a few weeks ago, and I believe his season was at least shortened by injury. And the second son, Zam, has ranked up there as well. I believe they're both still in the top 10. And then they have another brother in high school right now coming forward. So sticking together with many of those guys, Rob Ray doing the Sabres color now. He was the man who got thrown out of the last game at the odd early. And so he said that wasn't the greatest thing in the world, other than he got to go into the dressing room with all the veteran, the old, the ex Sabres players and hear all their stories for the entirety of the third period because he got tossed early in that game.
Wow. That's a great story. What did he get tossed for?
Believe it or not, fighting.
Wow, there you go. Who would have thought?
Yeah,
Now, of course, the latest chapter in your broadcasting career, which has now lasted over 27 years at this point, the Nashville Predators.
yeah.
Nashville gets the approval in 1997 to begin playing the next year. They, of course, needed a broadcaster to call the games. They choose you. How did this come about? What was the process of getting that gig?
Okay. I will tell you first, I was sitting upstairs in our house in Buffalo in the office I had built upstairs and reading, you probably aren't familiar with this, the Prodigy news service.
Mm-mm.
And Prodigy was just an online thing. And they said the NHL has decided provisionally to allow or to award franchises to Nashville, Atlanta, Columbus, Ohio, and Minneapolis, St. Paul. So I called downstairs to my wife and I said, gee, how much easier would our holiday periods be if we were in Nashville, since your parents are at that point in time in Knoxville, Tennessee,
Ah,
rather than driving 11, 12 hours
yeah.
during a tough time of year to be driving. That was, she said, yeah, absolutely. So I was able to locate the founding owner of the Predators, Craig Leopold, who ran Rain Fair, a golf uh, company, rain gear to wear while you're on the golf course. Found him in Racine, Wisconsin, FedExed my stuff to him the next day, and then kept following up. And ultimately, one of my former PR guys with the Sabres, Jerry Helper, got hired here. And he was sort of like plowing the ground for me
Mm.
to come in. So that was in the summer of 97. And by mid August of 98, I had the job I had signed on the line.
Now, this might be a difficult question. Uh, in all of your years of broadcasting Predators hockey,
Yeah.
what four players would go on your Mount Rushmore if you have them off the top of your head?
Four players. Okay, I'm going to have to go with Thomas Faucon, who was the first goaltender to led the team to the playoffs.
Hmm.
Then I'm going to stick in the goaltending realm with Pekka Rinne,
Yeah.
without any question. And then I'm going to go to Shea Weber,
Hmm.
who's been absolutely incredible on defense. He was a gold medalist in 2010. He was the beneficiary of that Sidney Crosby goal against Ryan Miller. And then I think I'd have to go with Paul Correa, who
Yeah.
really put this franchise on the map. He was only here 2 years, but he put the franchise on the map when he chose the Predators, when he became a free agent to sign. Actually, his agent called David Poile. It wasn't vice versa.
Oh wow. He wanted to he wanted to come to Nashville.
Yes.
I love it. Like you said, put the Predators on the map. My final question, Pete, as a
Yeah.
student broadcaster who works around many other aspiring broadcasters in college, what is a piece of advice you could give that helped you the most, you think, in your career, or something that you wish you had heard sooner?
I don't know about if I wish I heard it sooner, but
Mm,
realize what it is you love to do.
mm,
And I think that will drive you more than anything else. We have to be driven, I think, to do this. And the most driven person I'd ever seen in the sport world, was Marcel Dion when he was with the Kings. He had this, I'm going after this no matter what. You aren't going to stop me. And I think that's what you have to have. Now, whether that's a great lesson or not, that's not for me to say,
mm.
but perhaps for you to perceive. Well, let's just see how that works out.
All right. Well, Pete, it's been an absolute honor to speak with you, and thanks again for taking the time to do this interview.
Glad to do it, and best of luck this weekend.
Thank you very much,
When are
and
the games? Friday, Saturday?
Friday, Saturday. So we'll see what happens. And best of luck to the Predators for the rest of the season.
Thank you.
Should be
25
fun.
games to go, four
Yep.
points back of a playoff spot right now, and need to ski ramp past two teams.
All
So
right.
that's what faces them, and 25 games in 50 days.
Whew. Well, we'll see you in the playoffs then. Should be
I
fun.
hope so.
All righty.
Thank
Well,
you,
everyone,
Aidan.
thanks for watching. My name's Aidan Michaels, and this was the legendary broadcaster, Hall of Famer, Pete Weber.